Welcome back. Tonight, we drift through the sleepy streets of ancient Pompeii. So wherever you are, however your day has been, you have nothing to do now but rest. There are no twists tonight, nothing to follow, nothing you need to remember in the morning. A city of sun-warmed stone and painted walls, growing still beneath a fading dusk. We'll drift slowly, in no hurry to be anywhere at all. If these journeys help you rest, you're welcome to follow along, but only if you'd like to. And if you're listening now, leave the name of your city and the time where you are. Wherever you're listening from, you're in good company tonight. So let yourself settle. Let your shoulders soften. And let your eyes close whenever they're ready. Breathe in slowly. And let it go. There's no need to stay awake for any of this. Just let the streets of ancient Pompeii come to you. The ground beneath Pompeii holds a very old secret. Long before the first houses went up, the earth was already shaped for a city. Human hands did not carve this high ground. A prehistoric lava flow from Mount Vesuvius formed it. This ancient blast left behind a dark, hard shelf of volcanic rock. It made a natural terrace looking over the calm bay. Early settlers found a perfect, safe high ground waiting for them. You can still feel the gentle slope of this old rock when you walk the streets today. The city simply followed the shape of the cooled lava. It is a quiet reminder that nature drew the first map here. The dark stone gave a strong base for everything that followed. The land offered safety and a clear view of the water. It was a perfect place to stop and stay. The Romans did not lay the first stones here. The earliest streets were built by the Oscans. They were an ancient people who settled the area in the 6th century BC. If you look at a map of the ruins, you can easily spot their work. In the southwest corner, the roads do not follow a strict grid. Instead, they trace a messy, organic curve. These winding paths grew naturally over time. They followed the daily habits of the people who walked them. The Oscan builders did not care about perfect right angles. They built their simple homes, where the land felt right. This old quarter still feels different from the rest of the site. The curved lanes invite you to wander slowly. They hold the memory of a much older, quieter village. It is a small piece of the first settlement hiding in plain sight. By the 4th century BC, a new group called the Samnites took control. They decided to push the outer walls much further out. They built massive walls out of dark tufa stone. But they did not just wrap the wall around the houses. They drew a wide line that captured huge tracts of empty farmland. This was a very clever choice for survival. By keeping open fields inside the city limits, they could grow their own food. If an enemy army surrounded them, the people would not starve. They could simply harvest their wheat and olives behind the safety of the high walls. You can still see these large quiet green spaces today. They look like parks, but they were actually ancient insurance policies. The Samnites knew that a city needs more than just stone to survive. It needs the earth itself to provide comfort and safety during hard times. Water was just as important as the walls. Today, the Sarno River is a narrow, distant stream. But in the ancient world, it was a wide and powerful waterway. It flowed right past the southern edge of the city. This calm river was deep enough for wooden cargo boats. It served as a busy trade highway that brought great wealth to the local merchants. Goods from all over the sea floated right up to the stone steps. The river connected the quiet streets to the rest of the world. You can imagine the gentle sound of water lapping against the docks. The riverbanks were lush and green. They were filled with the daily rhythm of arriving ships. This steady flow of water made the town rich and important. The river was the lifeblood of the local economy. It turned a simple farming town into a thriving center of trade. The bond with the water went even further. This was originally a busy port city. The ocean used to sit right against the lower retaining walls. Wooden merchant ships would dock directly at the edge of the streets. But the landscape here is always moving. Over the centuries, constant earthquakes slowly shifted the ground. Thick volcanic ash also filled in the shallow waters. Together, these natural forces pushed the coastline back by more than a mile. Today, the old harbor ruins are stranded far inland. They sit quietly among dry fields, completely cut off from the sea. It is strange to look at ancient harbor rings with no water in sight. The ocean simply packed up and moved away. The old port was left behind like a forgotten memory. You can almost hear the ghost of the tide if you stand by the old sea gates. The shift into the Roman world was not entirely peaceful. In the year 89 BC, a famous general named Sulla attacked the walls. His army brought heavy weapons to force a surrender. They fired massive stone balls at the northern defenses. These heavy rocks slammed into the ancient masonry with incredible force. They left deep, smooth craters in the stone blocks. You can still see these round scars on the walls today. They are a lasting record of a very loud and violent week. But the stone held strong, and the city eventually became part of Rome. The craters now sit quietly in the afternoon sun. They look almost like natural dimples in the weathered rock. The violence of that siege is long gone. Only the physical marks remain. They blend softly into the texture of the old stone. After the conquest, Rome found a new use for the town. They turned it into a peaceful retirement colony for military veterans. This choice completely changed the local culture. It flooded the streets with fresh Roman wealth and new ideas. The retired soldiers wanted the comforts they were used to. This sparked a massive building boom across the neighborhoods. Grand new bathhouses went up with heated floors and marble pools. Workers built a large stone amphitheater for public shows. The quiet Oscan village became a modern Roman resort. You can see the pride they took in their new public spaces. The architecture became more elegant and refined. The veterans spent their final years enjoying the warm climate and beautiful views. They built a place designed for rest and leisure. The city became a comfortable reward for a lifetime of hard military service. The residents felt completely safe in their beautiful home. They had no idea that the mountain looming above them was dangerous. Mount Vesuvius had been asleep for many centuries. To the Romans, it was just a lush, green peak. Thick forests and terraced vineyards covered the slopes. Wealthy citizens even built quiet hunting estates high up on the ridges. The mountain gave them rich soil for their grapes, and a beautiful backdrop for their gardens. Nobody recognized the shape of a sleeping volcano. There were no stories or warnings passed down from older generations. The mountain was simply a friendly neighbor that gave them good wine. It is deeply moving to think about how much they trusted that landscape. They looked up at the green peak every single day. They only saw beauty and abundance in the very thing that would eventually bury them. The earth did try to give them a warning. 17 years before the famous eruption, a massive earthquake struck the region. The ground shook violently. It caused heavy damage to temples and homes. Because of this disaster, the city in 79 AD was not a perfect finished place. It was essentially a massive, dusty construction site. The Grand Forum was filled with wooden scaffolding and half-rebuilt marble columns. Stacks of fresh stone blocks sat waiting to be carved. Many families were still living in temporary conditions while their houses were repaired. The people were working hard to rebuild their beautiful home. They were looking forward to the future. This makes the final freeze in time even more poignant. The ruins we see today are actually the ruins of a city that was already under repair. It was a place caught right in the middle of fixing itself. A few days before the end, another strange thing happened. The underground springs that fed the local aqueduct dried up entirely. The dark, brick-lined water tower suddenly sat empty. The lead pipes stopped flowing, and the public fountains went quiet. Deep beneath the earth, rising magma was heating the ground and boiling the water away. But the ancient engineers could not read this warning sign. They likely thought it was just a broken pipe or a dry summer spell. They had no way to know what was happening, miles below their feet. The sudden lack of water must have been frustrating, but not terrifying. People simply adapted, and waited for the flow to return. The empty water tower still stands today. It is a silent witness to those final, confusing days. It is a quiet reminder of how little we sometimes understand about the earth beneath us. When the mountain finally woke up, it did not destroy everything with fire. The eruption began with a strange, heavy rain. Millions of tons of lightweight pumice stones fell from the sky. They drifted down onto the streets like a thick, grey snow. These small, porous rocks gently piled up on the terracotta roofs and stone sidewalks. The pumice actually protected the city from total destruction. As it filled the rooms and alleys, it supported the walls from the inside out. It kept the brick and stone from collapsing under their own weight. The city was not crushed. It was carefully packed away. The stones created a soft, deep cushion around every column and doorway. This gentle burial is the only reason the architecture survived so perfectly. The mountain used its own debris to hold the fragile buildings together for the next 2,000 years. The final phase of the event sealed the city completely. A superheated cloud of fine ash swept over the buried neighborhoods. This dense material settled over the pumice. It filled every remaining crack and crevice. It created a perfect, airtight shell over the entire landscape. This thick layer of ash locked out all oxygen and moisture. It instantly halted the natural decay of organic materials. Wood, food, and woven cloth were trapped in a dark, dry vacuum. The ash acted like a massive, protective blanket. It smoothed out the shape of the buildings. It left only a rolling grey landscape behind. The bustling streets were replaced by an eerie, quiet stillness. The city was perfectly paused in a single moment. The ash preserved the exact details of daily life for millennia. It turned a tragic afternoon into a permanent, silent museum, hidden deep underground. Because the burial happened so suddenly, it created a perfect time capsule. The site serves as a flawless anchor for historians today. Any style of pottery or coin found under the ash can be easily dated. We know exactly when those items were last used. For a long time, experts believed the event happened in late August. But a faint charcoal note was recently found on a plaster wall. A worker wrote it just days before the end. The casual note points clearly to late October. This tiny detail shifted our entire understanding of the timeline. It explains why people were wearing heavier wool clothing. It explains why autumn fruits were sitting on the tables. A single piece of charcoal corrected centuries of history. The ash captured that fragile writing. It held it safe in the dark until we were ready to read it. For over 1,000 years, the exact location of the ruins was completely forgotten. Grass and wild scrubs slowly grew over the thick layer of ash. The buried buildings simply became a gentle, overgrown hill in the Italian countryside. Local shepherds brought their sheep here to graze in the warm afternoon sun. They had no idea they were walking directly above ancient temples and grand villas. The people who lived nearby simply referred to the strange mound as La Civita. In their language, this meant the city. They did not know why it was called that. The name was just a faint echo passed down through generations. The landscape kept its secret perfectly. The hill looked like any other quiet pasture in the region. It is beautiful to think of the city resting so peacefully beneath the grass. It waited patiently while the centuries quietly slipped by. The first person to disturb this long sleep did not even realize it. In the year 1592, an architect named Domenico Fontana was hired to build a canal. He dug an underground aqueduct straight through the buried hill. His workers tunneled directly through packed ash and ancient Roman houses. In the dark, their lanterns lit up brightly painted frescoes on the buried walls. They found beautiful ancient art, hidden deep in the dirt. But Fontana simply documented the strange walls, and quietly covered them back up. He was focused on his water project and did not look further. He had no idea he had just walked through a lost Roman world. The tunnel was finished, and the ruins went back to sleep. It was a brief, accidental meeting between the 16th century and the ancient past. The true discovery would have to wait a little longer. The real unearthing finally began in 1748. A Spanish military engineer named Roque Joaquín de Alcubierre arrived at the quiet hill. He was not looking for a lost city. He was simply searching for ancient statues to decorate a new royal palace. His workers started digging deep, square shafts, straight down into the dark volcanic soil. They used wooden winches to pull up heavy baskets of dirt. When they hit a building, they would tunnel along the walls to find art. It was a rough and chaotic way to explore. They were essentially mining the ground for beautiful objects. They left the buildings behind once they took the treasures. But these early messy digs broke the seal on the landscape. The deep shafts let the sunlight touch the ancient stones for the first time in centuries. The long, quiet burial was finally coming to an end. Even after 15 years of digging, nobody actually knew what they had found. They were pulling up incredible statues and tools, but the site had no name. The workers just called it the ruins. That finally changed in 1763. A digger unearthed a dusty marble slab from the dirt. It was brought into a canvas tent and carefully brushed clean. The stone bore a deeply carved Latin inscription. It clearly read, Re Publicae Pompeianorum. This simple piece of marble confirmed the true identity of the site. The lost city finally had its name back. It was a thrilling moment for the scholars working in the dust. They realized they were not just digging up random villas. They had found an entire, famous Roman town intact. That single carved stone connected the silent ruins to the history books. The mystery of the gentle hill was finally solved. The news of this discovery quickly spread across the world. It sparked a massive European obsession with the ancient past. Wealthy travelers flocked to see the partially cleared temples. They walked through the dark ash banks by moonlight, sketching the romantic ruins. The beautiful frescoes and elegant columns inspired a whole new generation of artists. This fascination directly caused the neoclassical architectural movement. Designers began copying the clean lines and grand proportions they saw in the dirt. This ancient style soon shaped major government buildings from Paris to Washington, D.C. The buried town quietly influenced the look of the modern world. The aesthetic of a lost Roman settlement became the standard for power and democracy. It is amazing to think that a city hidden for centuries ended up designing the skylines of capitals thousands of miles away. By the 1860s, the site needed a better plan. An Italian archaeologist, named Giuseppe Fiorelli, arrived to take control. He completely changed how the work was done. He stopped the chaotic treasure hunting and introduced careful science. Fiorelli divided the entire map into a strict grid of regions and blocks. He assigned a specific number to every single doorway and street. This logical mapping system brought order to the confusing maze of ruins. It allowed researchers to record exactly where every object was found. His grid is still used by every historian who works there today. Fiorelli treated the site with deep respect. He saw it as a complex puzzle to be understood, not a mine to be emptied. His careful approach saved the architecture from further destruction. He taught the world how to properly listen to the quiet stories hidden in the ancient stone. Fiorelli also solved one of the biggest mysteries in the dirt. Workers kept finding strange, hollow cavities trapped inside the solid ash. Fiorelli realized these empty voids were left by rotted organic matter. The ash had hardened around wooden objects before they decayed away. He decided to pour liquid white plaster into these small holes. When the plaster set, he carefully chipped away the surrounding ash. The result was pure magic. He perfectly recreated ancient wooden doors, window shutters, and heavy furniture. The plaster captured the exact grain of the wood and the shape of the metal hinges. It made the invisible parts of the city visible again. These casts brought a sudden, vivid reality to the empty stone rooms. You could suddenly see the heavy doors that once closed out the noise of the street. It was a brilliant way to capture shadows. The ruins survived the volcano, but the modern world brought new dangers. During World War II, the ancient streets became a target. In 1943, Allied forces dropped over 160 bombs on the site. They mistakenly believed that German troops were hiding among the old walls. The explosions blasted fresh craters into the middle of the stone roads. They shattered terracotta tiles and knocked down ancient brick columns. The dust settled over a landscape that had already suffered so much. It was a tragic mistake that caused terrible damage to the fragile architecture. The deep craters required decades of careful modern restoration to fix. The conservators had to piece the shattered columns back together like a giant puzzle. It is a quiet reminder that history is always vulnerable. Even a city preserved by a mountain can be broken by a modern war. Sometimes, even good intentions cause harm. In the 1950s, caretakers wanted to protect the delicate walls from the rain. They built heavy, corrugated iron roofs directly over the exposed ruins. These thick steel beams cast harsh shadows across the ancient brick. But the modern materials did not mix well with the old stone. Over the years, the iron began to rust and expand in the damp air. This slow expansion cracked the ancient masonry beneath it. The protective roofs ended up causing more damage than the weather ever did. It was a painful lesson in conservation. The modern engineers learned that you cannot force new materials onto ancient structures. The old walls need to breathe and shift naturally. Many of those rusting roofs have now been carefully removed. The city is slowly being freed from the heavy, well-meaning mistakes of the 20th century. When you visit today, the landscape plays a trick on your eyes. The ash did not just preserve the buildings. It preserved the exact topography of the 1st century. The modern world outside the fence has continued to rise and build over time. Because of this, the modern ground level is nearly 20 feet higher than the ancient streets. When you walk through the ruins, you are actually walking at the bottom of a massive excavated pit. You can look up and see contemporary Italian roads and cars driving high above you. It is a strange and beautiful visual contrast. The ancient world sits quietly in a deep pocket of time. The modern world simply flows right over the top of it. This sharp boundary makes the ruins feel incredibly peaceful. You are physically stepping down into a much older, slower version of the Earth. The work here is still far from finished. Today, the Great Pompeii project focuses almost entirely on the unexcavated edges. A sheer, vertical wall of dark volcanic soil still looms over many cleared streets. This massive bank of earth holds the rest of the hidden neighborhoods. but the sheer weight of these ash hills is dangerous. During heavy rains, the wet soil threatens to collapse and crush the exposed architecture below. Modern teams use steel retaining nets and wooden shoring to hold the earth back. They are not trying to dig up more treasures. They are simply trying to stabilize the boundary between the hidden and the seen. It is a constant, quiet battle against gravity and weather. The Earth wants to reclaim the open spaces. The conservators work patiently every day to keep the ancient streets safe and clear for the future. We no longer need to move the dirt to see what is underneath. Modern archaeologists now use ground-penetrating radar to explore the hidden areas. They push small, wheeled devices across the flat fields of grass and volcanic soil. The radar sends gentle signals deep into the earth. It maps the unexcavated neighborhoods with incredible precision. The researchers can see the exact floor plans of buried villas on their screens. They can locate hidden doorways and garden walls without ever lifting a single shovel. This quiet technology allows the remaining ruins to stay safely asleep. The ash is still the best protector the city has ever had. We can learn its final secrets while leaving the ground perfectly undisturbed. The ancient streets remain dark and peaceful below the grass. We can finally explore the rest of this beautiful place without waking it up. When you walk up to the ancient city gates of Pompeii, you can still see how the heavy wooden doors once swung. The massive stone blocks at the entrance hold deep circular sockets. Inside these holes, you will find dark rings of oxidized lead. The builders set thick iron hinges into the stone and poured molten lead around them. As the hot metal cooled, it expanded to lock the iron firmly in place. This simple trick kept the heavy gates turning smoothly for centuries. The wood is long gone now, but the metal remains perfectly seated in the stone. You can almost hear the low scrape of the doors closing at dusk. The city would quiet down as the final travelers hurried inside for the night. The gates stood as a firm boundary between the busy streets and the dark countryside. Today, those rusted pivots sit quietly in the sun, holding onto a memory of movement. Just past the gates, the paved streets stretch out in long, straight lines. At every major intersection, you will find massive basalt stepping stones raised high above the road. These large oval blocks look like a stone river, crossing right in the middle of the town. The streets here did not just carry traffic. They also acted as open drains for heavy rainwater and daily runoff. The raised stones allowed people to cross the street without stepping down into the muck and flowing water. You could walk from one raised sidewalk to the other and keep your sandals perfectly dry. The stones are worn smooth on top from thousands of footsteps. They sit like quiet islands in a stream of dark volcanic rock. When the autumn rains wash over the city today, the water still flows neatly between them. It is a clever piece of urban design that still works exactly as intended. Those raised stepping stones were not placed at random. They were spaced with strict mathematical precision across every intersection. The gaps between the heavy basalt blocks were standardized to match the exact wheelbase of Roman carts. This meant a wooden wagon could roll right through the crossing without slowing down. The wheels would pass neatly through the empty spaces while the high axle cleared the stones above. Over many decades, the iron rims of those wooden wheels carved deep, parallel grooves into the dark paving stones. You can still see these ruts tracking perfectly between the pedestrian blocks. They look like ancient train tracks carved directly into the earth. The grooves tell a quiet story of endless daily deliveries. Carts full of grain, wine and building supplies followed these exact paths day after day. The stone remembers the heavy rhythm of a working town, locked forever in the dark pavement. When the sun went down, these busy streets fell into deep darkness. There was no public street lighting to guide the way home. To solve this, the road builders embedded small chips of bright white marble into the dark basalt paving. They called these little white stones cat's eyes. On a clear night, the white marble caught the soft glow of the moon. The stones acted like ancient lane reflectors, marking the edge of the road and the safe paths through the intersections. If you walk down these streets by moonlight today, you can still see them working. The dark volcanic rock fades into the shadows, but the white chips glow softly under the night sky. It is a gentle, passive kind of safety. The city did not fight the darkness with fire. It simply borrowed a little light from the sky, and placed it right where people needed it most. If you followed those glowing stones to the center of town, you would reach the main forum. This grand, open plaza was the heart of civic life, paved in bright white travertine. It was strictly a pedestrian space, meant for walking, talking and trading. To enforce this rule, the builders placed upright stone pillars at all the main entrances. These heavy bollards made it physically impossible for a wheeled cart to enter the square. The noise of wooden wheels and shouting drivers had to stop at the edge of the plaza. Once you stepped past the stone posts, the rhythm of the city changed. The frantic energy of the streets gave way to the steady hum of human voices. The flat, open space invited people to slow down and gather. Those simple stone blocks still stand guard today, keeping the wide plaza quiet and perfectly still under the warm afternoon sun. On one side of that quiet forum stands the ruined shell of the basilica. This was not a church, but the main law court and financial exchange. It was a place meant to project wealth, power, and absolute stability. The building featured massive, imposing columns that looked like solid blocks of expensive white marble. But if you look closely at the broken edges today, you will see a clever trick. The core of each giant column is actually made of cheap, stacked red bricks. The builders covered this rough brickwork with a thick layer of molded stucco. They painted and polished the plaster to perfectly mimic the smooth surface of imported stone. It was an ancient illusion, designed to impress visiting merchants and local citizens. The city wanted the look of an empire, without paying the heavy price. Now, the peeling stucco reveals the honest, hard-working brick that actually held the roof up. Behind the grand public buildings, a hidden system kept the town alive. The main water distribution center sits at the highest point in the city. This dark stone building is called the Castellum Aquae. Inside, a large basin fed water into a clever three-pipe system. These circular lead pipes sat at slightly different heights in the wall. The lowest pipe fed the public street fountains. The middle pipe went to the public baths. The highest pipe supplied the private homes of the wealthy. During a long summer drought, the water level in the basin would drop. The pipe feeding the private villas would run dry first. If the drought continued, the baths would stop next. But the lowest pipe always kept the public fountains flowing. It was a brilliant, automatic way to share a shrinking resource. The city made sure that no matter how dry the season got, everyone still had drinking water. Moving that water through the sloping streets required some careful engineering. The town sits on a natural incline, which meant the water rushed downhill with too much force. To control this pressure, engineers built tall, square pillars of red brick at major intersections. They placed heavy lead tanks on top of these tall towers. The fast-moving water flowed up into the tank, slowed down, and then dropped gently into the neighborhood pipes below. These towers acted as ancient pressure valves, stopping the lead pipes from bursting under the strain. You can still see these tall brick pillars standing quietly on the street corners today. They look like simple monuments, but they were the hard-working joints of a massive plumbing network. The system distributed fresh water evenly to every block. It is a beautiful example of solving a complex physical problem with nothing but gravity, brick, and a deep understanding of water. The water from those tall towers traveled through a vast hidden network. Buried deep beneath the stone sidewalks is a complex web of thick lead pipes. The town had a fully pressurized plumbing system long before the modern era. These dark metal tubes ran under the dirt, branching off to deliver fresh water directly into the courtyards of wealthy homes. You can still see cross-sections of these pipes, where the ancient sidewalks have crumbled away. They rest quietly in the soil, thick and heavy, waiting for water that will never come again. The residents did not have to walk to a well or carry heavy clay jugs. they simply turned a bronze valve in their garden, and clean water flowed out. It is strange to look down at the dirt and see such familiar technology. The buried pipes remind us that comfort and convenience are very old human desires. For most people, daily water came from the public street fountains. These heavy stone basins sat at nearly every major intersection. The water spouted continuously from carved stone blocks above the basins. The builders carved these spouts into the faces of gods, dogs, or lions. The water would flow right out of their open mouths. Today, if you look at the edges of these basalt basins, you will notice something beautiful. The hard stone is worn completely smooth and shiny, in two distinct spots. This happened because thousands of ancient hands rested in the exact same place to lean down and take a drink. The stone was slowly polished by the soft touch of human skin over many generations. It is a deeply moving detail to find on a quiet street. You can place your own hands in those smooth dips and feel a direct, physical connection to the people who lived here. Just steps away from the fountains, the main streets were lined with busy storefronts. These small shops did not have modern swinging doors on metal hinges. Instead, you can see deep, straight grooves carved directly into the massive stone thresholds. These long tracks show that the shops used heavy wooden sliding doors. In the early morning, the shopkeeper would push the wooden panels back along the stone track to open for business. At night, they would slide them shut and lock them tight. The stone grooves are worn incredibly smooth from years of daily friction. You can easily picture the morning routine. The sound of heavy wood scraping against stone would echo down the street as the town woke up. It was the ancient version of rolling up a metal security gate. Today the wood is gone, but the deep tracks remain, marking the boundary between the public street and the private shop. Many of those sliding doors opened into ancient fast food restaurants called thermopolia. These small shops featured brightly painted masonry counters facing the street. The tops of the counters were decorated with colorful scraps of broken marble. Built flush into the masonry were deep, round terracotta jars. These heavy clay pots acted just like modern thermoses. The thick terracotta walls insulated the food, keeping hot stews warm and cold drinks cool throughout the day. Workers and travelers would stop here for a quick, cheap meal on the go. You can imagine the steam rising from the jars on a crisp winter morning. The shopkeeper would ladle out hot lentils or spiced wine to hungry customers standing on the sidewalk. The painted counters still look vibrant and inviting today. They sit quietly in the sun, waiting for a lunch rush that ended a very long time ago, perfectly preserved in the silent city. Down the street from the food counters, the local bakeries were hard at work. In the dusty courtyards of these shops, you will find massive, hourglass-shaped mills. The builders carved these heavy stones from dark, porous lava rock. The rough, bubbly texture of the volcanic stone was perfect for the job. It acted like giant sandpaper, grinding the raw grain into fine flour. A blindfolded donkey, or a team of enslaved workers, would walk in endless circles, rotating the top stone. The grain poured in through the top, and the fresh flour spilled out the bottom. The lava rock was incredibly durable, but it slowly wore down over the years. Tiny flecks of stone would mix into the flour, which is why so many ancient people had worn down teeth. The heavy mills still stand in the empty courtyards today. They look like strange, dark sculptures resting quietly after centuries of endless, grinding labor. After a long day of work, many citizens headed to the public baths to relax. These massive brick buildings were heated by a brilliant hidden system called a hypocaust. If you look at a ruined bathhouse floor today, you can see exactly how it worked. The main floor was not built on the ground. It was suspended in the air on hundreds of neat, square brick pillars. Outside the room, workers kept a roaring wood fire burning in a furnace. The hot air and thick smoke flowed under the floor, circulating through the dark void between the brick pillars. This sent a gentle, radiant heat directly up through the tiles and into the bathers' feet. The hot air then traveled up through hollow pipes in the walls, before escaping through the roof. It was a clean, smokeless way to heat a massive stone room, wrapping the bathers in a perfect, invisible warmth. Inside the hottest rooms of the Stabian baths, the air was thick with heavy steam. This created a very practical problem for the architects. The steam would rise, hit the cold stone ceiling, and turn into heavy condensation. Nobody wanted freezing drops of water falling on them while they relaxed in a hot bath. To fix this, the builders covered the curved vaulted ceilings in deep, parallel stucco grooves. These ridges were not just for decoration. They acted as tiny aqueducts for the condensation. When the water droplets formed on the ceiling, they caught in the deep grooves. The water then slid gently down the curved walls and into a gutter, rather than dripping straight down. It is a wonderfully thoughtful piece of design. The architects understood exactly how the room would feel and function. They shaped the plaster to guide the water away, keeping the warm, steamy air perfectly comfortable and calm. For entertainment outside the baths, the town gathered at the Grand Amphitheatre. This massive, oval structure sits quietly at the edge of the city, surrounded by tall pine trees. It is the oldest surviving stone amphitheatre in the entire Roman world. If you walk out onto the flat dirt arena today, you will notice something missing. Unlike the famous Colosseum in Rome, there is no complex maze of underground chambers here. There are no hidden trapdoors or animal cages beneath the sand. The arena floor is built solidly on the earth. It is a simpler, older style of architecture. The grassy seating tiers rise up gently from the ground, blending into the natural landscape. Without the dark underground tunnels, the space feels open and peaceful. The wind blows softly across the empty dirt floor. It is a quiet, sunlit field that just happens to be wrapped in a ring of ancient stone. Sitting in those stone seats during the brutal summer months could be unbearably hot. To protect the spectators from the blazing sun, the amphitheater was equipped with a massive canvas awning called a velarium. If you look closely at the very top edge of the outer wall, you can still see how it worked. Heavy carved stone rings protrude from the ancient masonry against the clear blue sky. Sailors used these sturdy rings to anchor thick ropes. They would stretch the giant fabric shade high over the seating area, creating a cool, artificial cloud. The canvas would ripple and snap gently in the coastal breeze, casting deep shadows over the crowd below. It was a massive feat of rigging and engineering. Today, the canvas and ropes are long gone. But those heavy stone rings still wait patiently at the top of the wall, holding onto the memory of a cool, shaded afternoon. Away from the public arenas, the private neighborhoods offer their own quiet details. The houses here were protected from the heavy winter rains by a brilliant roofing system. The builders used an interlocking pattern of terracotta tiles that is still common in the region today. They laid down large, flat rectangular tiles called tegulae, which had raised edges on the sides. Then, they placed half-cylinder curved tiles called imbrices over the seams to lock everything together. This created a completely waterproof seal without using any nails or heavy mortar. The rain would hit the curved tiles and wash neatly down the flat channels into the street. The terracotta baked in the sun, turning a warm, earthy red. When you look across the restored rooftops today, you see a sea of gentle, repeating ridges. It is a simple, elegant design that has kept the rain out of these homes for thousands of years. The roofs did not just push the water away, they were designed to invite it inside. Every traditional home featured a square opening in the center of the roof. Directly beneath this hole, in the dim light of the front hall, sat a shallow marble basin called an impluvium. The roof tiles slanted inward, catching the fresh rainwater and channeling it down through the open sky. The water would fall gently into the basin and drain into a deep underground cistern. This gave the family a private supply of fresh, cool water right in their entryway. On a rainy afternoon, the sound of water splashing into the marble pool would echo softly through the quiet house. It brought the weather inside in a controlled, beautiful way. The open roof also let in a square of soft daylight, illuminating the dark interior walls. The basin sits dry today, waiting for a passing cloud. Some of these private homes grew to an incredible size. The famous House of the Faun is so massive that it takes up an entire city block. It is a sprawling complex of quiet courtyards, grand dining rooms and long hallways. The house gets its name from a tiny, exquisite detail found in its main rainwater pool. In the center of the shallow stone basin stands a small, dark bronze statue of a dancing faun. The figure is caught in mid-step, looking up at the sky with a joyful expression. It is a tiny piece of art, in a truly massive space. The contrast between the huge, echoing house and the delicate little statue is striking. The faun seems to be dancing purely for himself in the quiet, empty courtyard. The grand walls have crumbled, and the roof is gone. But the little bronze dancer still balances perfectly in the center of the ruined home. Deep inside these large homes, the wealthy built lush, open-air inner gardens called peristyles. The front rooms of a Roman house were often dark and windowless to keep the street noise out. To bring light and fresh air into the back of the house, they created these private, sunlit courtyards. The gardens were surrounded by covered walkways, supported by painted columns. Families would plant ferns, roses, and small fruit trees in the center. They decorated the space with marble statues and gently trickling water fountains. It was a quiet, green sanctuary hidden away from the dusty city streets. You could walk along the shaded colonnade and look out into your own private piece of nature. Today, archaeologists have replanted many of these gardens with the exact same types of flowers. The green leaves catch the afternoon sun, bringing a soft living breath back into the silent stone walls of the ancient house. The floors inside these homes were just as carefully crafted as the gardens. Instead of using expensive marble slabs, many everyday rooms featured a smooth, waterproof surface called opus signinum. Builders created this incredibly durable floor by mixing crushed terracotta roof tiles with wet lime mortar. They would spread the mixture flat and polish it until it was perfectly smooth. The crushed terracotta gave the floor a warm, reddish-pink glow. It was cheap, easy to clean, and felt cool under bare feet during the hot summer months. The tiny fragments of red clay looked like a beautiful scattered mosaic locked in the pale mortar. This simple material survived the centuries beautifully. You can still walk across these smooth pink floors today. They catch the soft light spilling in from the garden, filling the empty rooms with a gentle rosy warmth that makes the ruined house feel strangely alive and welcoming. The walls above those pink floors were often painted to look much richer than they actually were. The oldest style of wall decoration in the city did not depict complex scenes, landscapes or people. Instead, decorators used molded stucco to fake the appearance of expensive, imported marble blocks. They would shape the wet plaster into raised rectangles and paint them with bright, veined colors. This is known as the first style of wall painting. It was a clever trick to make a simple brick wall look like a grand palace interior. The homeowner could look wealthy and important without paying for heavy stone to be shipped across the sea. In the dim light of an oil lamp, the painted plaster looked perfectly real. Today, the colors have faded, and the illusion is broken. But the raised stucco still clings to the walls, a quiet reminder of an ancient desire to impress the neighbors. As fashions changed over the decades, homeowners often wanted to update those painted walls. When a family decided to redecorate, they did not bother stripping the old plaster away. Instead, they simply chipped and scratched the old painting, to give the new layer of wet plaster something to grip. Then, they painted a completely new design right on top. Today you can find many ruined walls where the top layer of plaster has peeled back like old wallpaper. You might see a bright red panel from one era breaking away to reveal a soft yellow pattern from 50 years earlier. It is like looking at the rings of a tree. The walls hold a stacked history of changing tastes and different generations living in the same room. The peeling colors tell a very human story. They show a city that was constantly renewing itself, layer by layer, right up until the very end. Despite all the streets, homes and baths we can explore today, the map is not complete. Nearly 1/3 of the ancient city remains intentionally buried under the earth. Archaeologists have chosen to leave these final neighborhoods resting under the original volcanic ash. They are preserving this massive mound of dark soil as a pristine time capsule. They know that future generations will have better technology and gentler ways to uncover the past. So the digging has stopped. Wildflowers and tall green grass grow directly on top of the buried roofs. It is a beautiful, quiet boundary line. On one side, the excavated stone ruins sit open to the sun and the crowds. On the other side, a gentle green hill keeps its secrets perfectly safe in the dark. The city is allowed to sleep a little longer, waiting patiently for a future that is not quite ready for it yet. The ancient city of Pompeii woke up slowly to a ritual called the salutatio. Long before the sun cleared the horizon, the streets began to stir. Poorer citizens stepped out of their small homes into the cool morning air. They walked quietly toward the grand houses of their wealthy patrons. Inside the dim stone courtyards they gathered near the central water basins. They waited patiently in their simple wool tunics. The morning light would just begin to touch the painted walls. In exchange for their political loyalty, these men received a small daily allowance. Sometimes it was a handful of coins. Other times it was a modest portion of food. It was a quiet, orderly way to begin the day. The city ran on these small bonds of duty and care. You can almost hear the soft murmur of voices echoing off the stone. The day had officially begun. As the sky brightened, the narrow streets filled with hungry workers. Most ordinary people did not have kitchens in their homes. Cooking over an open fire in a small room was simply too dangerous. Instead, they ate their breakfast on the go. They stopped at small, brightly painted counters, built right into the street corners. These were the ancient world's fast food stands. Vendors stood behind stone bars decorated with colorful marble scraps. They lifted the heavy lids off deep terracotta pots, set into the counter. Steam rose into the crisp morning air. Workers bought warm, crusty bread, fresh cheese and hot bowls of lentils. They ate standing up, chatting with neighbors before heading to their jobs. The smell of wood smoke and warm food drifted down the block. It was a shared morning routine. The city woke up together, eating side by side on the pavement. Bread was the heart of the morning meal. Because most homes lacked ovens, baking was a communal effort. Families mixed their own dough at home and carried it to the neighborhood bakery. The baker used a massive wood-fired brick oven to bake dozens of loaves at once. To keep track of whose bread was whose, they used a clever system. Bakers had small, custom iron stamps. Before sliding the raw dough into the heat, they pressed the stamp firmly into the top. It left a clear mark of the owner's initials in the crust. When the hot bread came out, there was no confusion. Nobody walked away with the wrong loaf. You can imagine the warm, yeasty scent filling the bakery. People waited in the morning sun, watching for their own stamped bread to emerge. It was a simple, elegant solution for a busy, crowded neighborhood. The bread they carried home had a very specific shape. The standard loaf was called panis quadratus. It was a large, round, crusty dome of wheat. Before baking, the baker tied a string around the edge to help it rise evenly. Then, they pressed a wooden wheel into the top. This deeply scored the dough into 8 perfect wedges. When the bread was fully baked, it looked like a sliced pie. This design was incredibly practical for daily life. It made the loaf easy to tear apart and share. You did not even need a knife at the dinner table. A family could simply break off a wedge and pass the rest along. The crust was thick and dark, while the inside stayed soft and warm. It was the perfect tool for soaking up soups or olive oil. The shape was as functional as it was beautiful. With breakfast finished, the city shifted into its working hours. But time here was a fluid, changing thing. The people did not track minutes or seconds. They ran their days by the shadows cast on public sundials. These carved white marble blocks sat in the bright plazas. A bronze pointer cast a sharp line across the engraved stone. The sundial divided the daylight into 12 equal hours. Because the amount of daylight changes with the seasons, the hours change too. An hour in the peak of summer was long and stretched out. An hour in the dark depths of winter was brief and fleeting. The rhythm of work naturally expanded and contracted with the sun. People did not rush against a ticking clock. They simply followed the natural arc of the day. The sun dictated when to work, when to rest, and when to go home. In the busy markets, merchants recorded their daily trades. They did not use fragile paper or expensive parchment for simple notes. Instead, they used wooden tablets coated in a thin layer of black wax. These small boards were hinged together like a modern book. A merchant would hold the tablet and use a sharp metal stylus to write. They scratched Latin letters directly into the dark wax. It was a quick, easy way to draft a contract or tally a bill. If they made a mistake, they simply flipped the stylus around. The flat end of the tool was used to smooth the wax back out. The error vanished, leaving a blank slate behind. These tablets were the notebooks of the ancient world. They held the quiet, everyday details of city life. Debts, promises, and quick reminders were all pressed into the soft, yielding surface. The loudest part of the morning was the central meat and fish market. This grand space was known as the Macellum. It sat right off the main square, surrounded by deep, shady shops. In the very center of the courtyard stood a beautiful circular pavilion. 12 stone columns held up a wooden roof to block the hot sun. This shaded area was dedicated entirely to cleaning and selling fresh fish. The architects built a specialized drainage system right into the stone floor. Water flowed continuously, washing away the mess of the morning catch. Archaeologists later found thousands of tiny fish scales trapped in these ancient gutters. You can picture the busy fishmongers working quickly on wet marble slabs. The smell of the sea hung heavy in the air. Buyers pointed to the freshest catch, while cool water rushed over the stones, carrying the scales away. The sea provided the city with its most famous export. It was a pungent, fermented fish sauce known as garum. The locals loved it, and they shipped it all over the known world. The sauce was rich, salty, and deeply savory. It was so popular that potters made specific clay jars just to hold it. These tall, pointed vessels were called amphorae. They were designed to pack tightly into the hulls of wooden cargo ships. The makers even stamped the wet clay with the names of the local producers. A merchant could look at the painted label and know exactly who made the sauce inside. Storerooms across the city were stacked high with these heavy jars. They leaned quietly against the cool stone walls in the dark. The sauce was a staple of every meal, bringing the sharp, salty taste of the ocean to the dinner table. Away from the food markets, the city had its own industrial rhythm. The local dry cleaners were known as fulleries. These were loud, busy, and incredibly smelly places. The workers had a very difficult, physical job. They stood waist-deep in small stone tubs built directly into the floor. The tubs were filled with a mixture of water and human urine. The urine provided natural ammonia, which was essential for bleaching and cleaning raw wool. Workers stomped on the submerged clothes for hours, breaking down the dirt and oils. It was exhausting work, done in the heat of the day. Wet tunics and heavy cloaks hung from wooden racks above their heads. The damp fabric dripped onto the stone floors. Despite the harsh smell, these shops were vital to the city. They kept the citizens looking clean, bright, and respectable as they walked through the dusty streets. Once the wool was clean, it was ready for color. Brightly colored clothing was a major status symbol in this society. The dyeing workshops were dark, smoky spaces filled with intense heat. Workers boiled raw wool in massive lead vats, set over open wood fires. The lead helped the fabric absorb the expensive pigments evenly. They used natural ingredients to create deep, rich colors. Madder root produced a brilliant, fiery red. Indigo imported from far away gave the cloth a deep, striking blue. A worker would stand by the steaming vat, stirring the heavy wet wool with a long wooden pole. The air was thick with steam and the earthy smell of boiling roots. The vibrant colors slowly soaked into the fibers. When the cloth was finally pulled from the water, it was transformed. It was ready to be woven into fine garments for the wealthy. By mid-afternoon, the rhythm of the city shifted completely. The workday ended early, and the streets emptied out. The entire population headed to the public baths. Rich and poor, enslaved and free. Everyone shared this daily ritual. The forum baths were the great social equalizer of the ancient world. They were also the loudest, most chaotic part of the day. The grand stone halls echoed with voices, laughter, and splashing water. Sunlight streamed through small, high windows, cutting through the thick steam. Men relaxed in large marble pools, letting the hot water soothe their tired muscles. Friends caught up on the daily news, and merchants casually discussed business. It was a place to unwind, gossip, and wash away the dust of the streets. The baths were the true heart of the community. For a few hours every afternoon, the whole city simply stopped to rest. The bathing process was very different from how we wash today. The bathers did not use soap to clean themselves. Instead, they went to a warm changing room called the apodyterium. Here, they rubbed their skin generously with rich, green olive oil. The oil loosened the dirt, sweat, and grime from the day. Then, they used a special tool called a strigil. It was a curved, blunt blade made of bronze or iron. They scraped the metal firmly across their arms and legs. The strigil pulled away the heavy oil and all the dirt trapped inside it. Only after this scraping process did they step into the clear water to rinse off. It left their skin incredibly soft and clean. You can imagine the quiet scraping sound echoing in the warm, humid room. It was a slow, deliberate routine of self-care before the evening began. After the baths, many citizens walked over to the entertainment district. The large open-air theater was a focal point of city life. But even in leisure, the society was strictly organized. The theater had legally enforced seating arrangements based on social class. The wealthiest and most powerful citizens sat at the very bottom. They enjoyed wide, smooth marble steps right near the stage. They had the best views and the most comfortable seats. The poorer citizens and the enslaved were sent to the very top. They sat on rougher, steeper stone tiers, far away from the actors. Despite the division, everyone shared the same sea breeze and the same afternoon sun. The curved stone walls captured the voices from the stage perfectly. When the theater was empty, it was a place of profound, sweeping quiet. The rows of stone simply waited for the next grand performance. Just behind the theater was a large, open courtyard, surrounded by stone pillars. Originally, this space was designed as a quiet garden. It was a peaceful place for the audience to stroll and talk during intermissions. But as the city changed, the space was repurposed. It was converted into a noisy, sweaty barracks for the local gladiators. The men lived, slept, and trained in this enclosed square. Heavy wooden training posts were driven deep into the sandy ground. You could hear the sharp crack of wooden swords hitting the posts all afternoon. Heavy bronze helmets and thick leather belts rested on the stone benches in the shade. It was a tough, disciplined environment, hidden right behind the arts district. The gladiators prepared for their matches, while the theater crowds cheered next door. The two very different worlds existed side by side in the warm afternoon sun. For a much quieter form of entertainment, citizens visited the Odeon. This was a smaller, more intimate theater, built right next to the large one. Unlike its massive neighbor, the Odeon was permanently roofed with heavy timber. This wooden ceiling was not just for shade. It was designed to create perfect, warm acoustics. The space was used for delicate poetry readings and soft musical performances. The enclosed design captured every single note. An audience could hear the quiet, gentle pluck of a wooden lyre from the very back row. The atmosphere here was hushed and respectful. The stone seats curved tightly around the small stage, bringing everyone close to the performer. Soft daylight filtered in through the side doors, illuminating the dust in the air. It was a peaceful retreat from the busy streets. The music drifted gently into the cool, shadowed corners of the room. As evening approached, the wealthy returned to their grand homes for dinner. They did not sit upright in wooden chairs to eat. Instead, they dined in a beautifully painted room called a triclinium. The room was named for its 3 angled couches. These couches were arranged in a tight U-shape around a low central table. The diners reclined comfortably on their left elbows, resting on soft cushions. They used their right hands to reach for the food. This reclining posture was considered the ultimate sign of elegance and relaxation. Servants brought out silver platters, filled with roasted meats, fresh fruits, and warm bread. The warm glow of oil lamps flickered against the brightly frescoed walls. Conversation flowed easily across the small table. It was a slow, luxurious way to end the day. The diners lingered for hours, enjoying the food and the quiet company of friends. The food served at these banquets could be quite surprising. One of the most prized delicacies for a wealthy host was the dormouse. These small rodents were not caught in the wild. They were carefully raised in special terracotta jars called gleraria. The jars were round and dark, with small air holes punched through the clay sides. Inside, the potters molded a tiny spiral ramp into the wall. The mice would run along this track in the dark. The owners fed them a rich diet of walnuts, chestnuts, and acorns. The mice stayed in the jars until they were perfectly fattened up. Then, they were roasted with honey and poppy seeds for the dinner table. It was a dish meant to impress the guests. The empty jars sat quietly in the kitchen corners, a strange but common tool of ancient culinary life. No dinner party was complete without wine, but it was never drunk straight. The wine of the time was stored as a thick, syrupy, highly alcoholic concentrate. Drinking it unmixed was considered barbaric and rude. The host had a very important job before the drinking began. They used a large, ornate bronze bowl called a crater, placed in the center of the room. The host carefully mixed the thick, dark wine with fresh water. They chose the exact ratio to achieve the perfect strength for the evening. Sometimes they added a little honey or warm spices to the bowl. Servants then dipped small jugs into the crater to fill the guests' cups. The mixing of the wine signaled the transition from eating to talking. It was a deliberate, mindful ritual. The gentle splashing of water and wine was the soundtrack to the late evening hours. While the wealthy dined inside, the rest of the city began to wind down. People walking home stopped at major street corners to observe a quiet tradition. At these intersections, small painted shrines were built right into the stone walls. They were called compita, and they honored the protective spirits of the crossroads. The shrines were brightly decorated with painted snakes and small altars. Neighbors gathered here in the fading light. They left small, simple offerings to protect their block and their families. Someone might leave a fresh garland of flowers. Another might leave a single coin or a piece of fruit. It was a moment of shared community faith. The crossroads were seen as magical transitional spaces that needed guarding. As the sky turned purple, these little street corners became quiet places of respect. The neighborhood settled down, trusting the spirits to watch over the dark streets. That same sense of protection extended inside the houses. Every single home, from the grandest mansion to the tiniest apartment, had a household shrine. This sacred little niche was called a lararium. It was usually carved into the plastered wall of the main room or the kitchen. Families performed a brief, quiet ritual here every single day. They honored the lares, the protective spirits of their ancestors. The head of the household would step up to the small ledge. They might offer a splash of the evening wine, or a small piece of bread. Sometimes they simply lit a small lamp. It was a way of thanking the past for the safety of the present. The flickering light cast warm shadows over the painted figures inside the niche. It was a deeply personal, quiet moment. The house was secured for the night through this simple act of memory. If you look closely at these household shrines today, you will notice a recurring image. Almost every lararium features a painting of a large, bearded snake. The snake is usually shown slithering through green grass toward a small altar. To modern eyes, a snake might seem like a strange or frightening choice for a home. But to the people who lived here, the snake was not evil at all. It was a powerful symbol of peace, fertility, and the protective spirit of the family. The painted snake guarded the home from harm and brought good fortune to the residents. The colors on these frescoes have faded over the centuries. The reds and yellows are softer now, worn down by time and ash. But the coiled guardian remains visible on the ruined walls. It still watches over the quiet, empty rooms, keeping its long, silent vigil. As true darkness fell, the city relied entirely on fire for light. There were no street lamps to guide the way. Instead, thousands of small terracotta oil lamps were lit across the city. These lamps were cheap, common, and beautifully crafted. Potters molded them into wonderful shapes. You could find lamps shaped like sleeping animals, delicate seashells, or even a simple leather sandal. A small wick floated in a pool of olive oil at the spout. When lit, the lamp produced a soft, warm, flickering glow. The light was not bright enough to read by easily, but it pushed back the shadows. Families gathered close to the small flames in their dining rooms and bedrooms. The smell of burning olive oil drifted through the open windows. The city became a constellation of tiny, isolated fires. The soft light made the stone walls feel warm and safe. The dark streets were mostly empty, but they were not entirely asleep. Election season transformed the city, and much of the work happened at night. Professional sign painters walked the quiet alleys by the light of a single hanging lantern. They carried buckets of fresh whitewash and pots of bright pigment. First, they painted over the old, faded slogans on the exterior walls. Then, they carefully painted fresh political endorsements in neat, bold lettering. They used striking red and black paint, so the names would pop in the morning sun. Working at night meant the streets were clear of crowds and dust. The painter could focus entirely on the steady sweep of his brush. The soft scrape of the ladder against the stone was the only sound. By dawn, the city would wake up to a brand new layer of bright, hopeful promises on the walls. The painters shared the dark streets with a much louder presence. During the day, wheeled carts were legally banned from the city center. This rule prevented massive traffic jams in the narrow, crowded alleys. Because of this, all the heavy goods had to be moved at night. The darkness was incredibly noisy. Heavy wooden carts pulled by mules rumbled constantly over the uneven basalt paving stones. The iron-rimmed wheels echoed loudly between the tall brick walls. Drivers shouted quietly to their animals, navigating by the dim light of swinging lanterns. They delivered grain to the bakeries, wine to the taverns, and heavy stone to the building sites. The ground literally shook as the heavy wagons rolled past the sleeping houses. It was the hidden industrial heartbeat of the city. The heavy labor was done in the dark, so the morning streets could remain clear and calm. Beyond the city gates, the noise of the carts finally faded away. The dead were never buried inside the city walls. Instead, the roads leading out into the countryside served as the cemetery. This area was known as the necropolis, or the city of the dead. The quiet stone roads were lined on both sides with elaborate, house-like tombs. Some were built of smooth white marble, while others were made of warm red brick. They were shaped like small temples or grand altars. By placing the tombs on the main roads, the ancestors remained part of daily life. Every traveler, merchant and farmer passed by them on their commute. The dead were not hidden away, they were greeted every single day. In the soft evening light, the street of tombs was incredibly peaceful. The stone monument stood silently under the stars, watching the road to the city. When you walk the stone streets of ancient Pompeii today, you might notice deep grooves in the raised curbs. These marks tell a quiet story about daily life in a busy Roman town. The streets here were often very narrow. Carts pulled by mules had to navigate tight corners and crowded blocks. Traffic control was actually quite strict. Modern researchers looked closely at the wear patterns on these stones. They found that the heavy wooden wheels rubbed against the curbs in only one direction. This simple physical evidence proved that some of the narrowest routes were strictly one-way streets. It is easy to imagine the sounds of those wooden wheels echoing off the stone walls. The city had its own rhythm of movement. Drivers knew exactly which paths to take to avoid a jam. The worn stones still hold the memory of that daily commute. You can almost hear the carts passing by. The straight lines of those streets were not an accident. In the quiet workshop of a local surveyor, excavators found a remarkable tool. It is called a gromer. The device looks like a simple iron cross, mounted on a wooden pole. 4 bronze weights hang from strings at the ends of the arms. These hanging weights acted as perfect plumb lines. Surveyors used this cross to sight straight lines across the landscape. They laid out the entire grid of the town with this one simple instrument. The design is elegant and incredibly precise. It relies entirely on gravity and a steady eye. You can picture a worker standing in the morning sun, adjusting the wooden pole. He would wait for the bronze weights to stop swinging in the breeze. With just a few careful measurements, he shaped the blocks and avenues. The tool brought perfect order to the bustling streets. If you follow those straight roads to the main public square, you will find a wide, open space. This is the Forum. A row of grand white marble pedestals stands along the edge. Today, these carved stone bases are completely empty. You might assume the statues were lost during the famous volcanic eruption. But the truth is much more practical. A massive earthquake shook the region 17 years before the volcano woke up. Many heavy bronze statues fell and broke during that earlier disaster. The citizens quickly gathered up the valuable metal. They salvaged the bronze to melt down or repair later. By the time the final ash fell, the town had not yet replaced them. The empty pedestals simply waited in the sun. They stand as a quiet reminder of a town that was already rebuilding. The people were just trying to put their home back together. That slow process of rebuilding is visible all over the public square. Near the empty pedestals, a massive block of white marble lies in the dirt. It was meant to be a grand new column for a temple. But the stone is only half carved. One side is perfectly smooth and round. The other side remains rough and unfinished. When researchers cleared the ash away, they found something deeply human. The stonemason's rusted iron chisels were resting right next to the block. The worker simply dropped his tools when the sky grew dark. He left his work exactly as it was. The unfinished stone captures a single, sudden moment in time. It feels as though the mason might return at any minute to finish the job. The smooth curve of the marble shows his skill. The rough edge shows how quickly daily life came to a halt. Just beyond the main square, the plaster walls are covered in faded red paint. These are ancient election signs. Local painters brushed them onto the buildings to support different candidates. The messages are bold and bright, but if you look closely at the Latin words, you will notice something charming. Many of these official signs contain glaring spelling errors. The grammar is often completely wrong. This small detail changes how we understand the ancient world. It proves that reading and writing were not just for the wealthy elite. Everyday working-class painters knew how to write. They just sounded the words out as best they could. The misspelled signs feel incredibly warm and human. You can imagine a painter working late at night by lantern light. He was rushing to finish the job before morning. He cared more about making the letters look good than spelling them perfectly. The walls of the local taverns hold even more personal messages. People love to scratch their thoughts into the soft red plaster. These notes are full of clever, everyday complaints. In one small dining room, a disgruntled customer left a very specific review. He used a sharp point to carve a message about the innkeeper. The customer accused the owner of serving plain water to his guests. Meanwhile, the innkeeper supposedly kept all the good wine for himself. It is a timeless piece of petty frustration. The scratched letters are small and hasty. You can almost see the customer sitting in the dim light, nursing a bad drink. He probably waited until the owner turned his back. Then he quickly carved his little revenge into the wall. The complaint has survived for thousands of years. It is a funny, quiet echo of a very ordinary evening. In another tavern down the street, a different kind of message remains on the wall. This one is not a complaint. It is a customer's unpaid bar tab. The bartender scratched the list directly into the painted plaster. The Latin words and Roman numerals are still perfectly clear today. The list includes a serving of bread, a cup of wine, and some cheese. Next to each item is the exact number of copper coins owed. It is a simple record of a modest meal. The tavern was a place where neighbors gathered after a long day of work. They sat on wooden benches and shared stories over cheap food. The bartender probably kept these running tallies for all his regular guests. He just wiped the wall clean when they finally paid. This particular tab was simply frozen in time. The copper coins were never handed across the counter. Those taverns were also filled with the clatter of games. Gambling was technically illegal under Roman law, but it was still wildly popular in every neighborhood. Men would gather in the back rooms to roll dice and place bets. In one of these quiet corners, excavators found a pair of ancient dice. They were carefully carved from animal bone, but these were not ordinary game pieces. The owner had secretly hollowed out the center of one die. He then filled the tiny empty space with a plug of heavy lead. This hidden weight ensured the die would always land on a winning number. It is a brilliant and sneaky piece of cheating. The loaded die was probably kept hidden in a small leather pouch. The owner only brought it out when the bets grew large. You can imagine the tense, quiet moments before the final roll. The food served in these neighborhood spots was usually simple and local, but sometimes the menu offered a genuine surprise. In the stone drain of one busy restaurant, researchers found a very unusual scrap. It was a butchered bone from a giraffe. This single piece of evidence changed how historians view the local diet. It proved that everyday citizens occasionally ate highly exotic meals. The meat was imported from far beyond the borders of the empire. It must have traveled across the sea on a large merchant ship. You can picture the cooks in the cramped kitchen, preparing something entirely new. The rich smell of exotic spices would have drifted out into the street. A giraffe dinner was likely a rare and expensive treat. It shows how connected this small town was to the wider world. Even a modest corner restaurant could offer a taste of a distant land. Most of the food found in the ruins is much more familiar. The falling ash acted like a massive, instant oven. It preserved everyday meals by completely carbonizing them. The intense heat baked the moisture out of the food in seconds. In the glass cases of the museum, you can see these charred remains. There are terracotta bowls filled with walnuts and sweet figs. There is even a small bowl holding several whole eggs. They are completely black, like pieces of dark charcoal. But they have kept their exact, delicate shapes. The shells did not crack or break. They look as though they were just set on the counter for breakfast. The sight of these simple groceries is deeply moving. They are the quiet, ordinary details of a morning routine. Someone was just getting ready to cook a meal. The food waits patiently in the quiet museum light. The ingredients for those meals often grew right in the backyards. The ash preserved the gardens just as perfectly as the food. When the ancient plants died, their roots rotted away over the centuries. This left tiny, hollow cavities in the packed dirt. In the 1970s, archaeologists tried a new technique. They poured liquid plaster directly into these small holes in the soil. When the plaster hardened, they dug it up. The casts revealed the exact shapes of the ancient root systems. By studying these white plaster roots, botanists identified the specific plants. They learned exactly which flowers, herbs and vines grew in each courtyard. They found the ghosts of old fruit trees and climbing roses. The technique brought the ancient gardens back to life. It is wonderful to know exactly what the air smelled like. The courtyards were full of green leaves and sweet blossoms. Those plaster root casts led to a beautiful modern project. Researchers mapped out the exact locations of the ancient vineyard plots. These small farms were tucked right inside the old stone walls. Modern botanists decided to bring the tradition back. They used the root data to identify the specific ancient grape varieties. Then, they carefully replanted those exact same vines in the original soil. Today, neat rows of green grapevines grow on wooden trellises among the ruins. The leaves soak up the warm afternoon sun just as they did centuries ago. The town actually produces its own wine once again. The harvest is small, and carefully tended by hand. It is a living connection to the distant past. You can stand by the old walls and watch the grapes ripen. The deep roots reach down into the same rich dark earth. The cycle of the seasons continues quietly. If you leave the vineyards and walk toward the wealthier neighborhoods, the houses grow larger. At the entrance of one elegant home, the floor itself sends a warning. A famous mosaic is built right into the paving stones of the doorway. It depicts a fierce black dog on a bright red leash. The animal is shown crouching and snarling, ready to spring. Below the dog, black tiles spell out two Latin words. The words are, Cave Canem. This translates literally to beware of dog. It is a surprisingly modern detail in such an old place. The mosaic was meant to startle guests as they stepped inside. It probably made visitors smile after the initial shock. The tiny black and white tiles are still firmly set in the mortar. The chained dog has guarded this empty doorway for 2,000 years. He waits patiently in the quiet shadows. Just above that mosaic dog, something else used to hang in the doorway. Residents often suspended small bronze wind chimes from the ceiling. These delicate objects were called tintinnabula. They were meant to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck to the home. The chimes were often shaped like winged animals or mythical creatures. Several small bronze bells hung from tiny chains beneath the main figure. When the warm sea breeze blew through the open doors, the bells would ring. The sound was a gentle, high-pitched tinkling that echoed through the courtyard. It was the background music of a peaceful afternoon. You can imagine sitting in the shade, listening to the metal clinking softly. The chimes caught the sunlight as they spun in the air. They were a beautiful mix of art and superstition. The quiet ringing made the large stone houses feel safe and calm. Inside these grand homes, the dining rooms were designed to impress. The walls were covered in bright, elaborate paintings. The artists who worked here were absolute masters of visual illusion. They painted fake architectural details that looked incredibly real. In some rooms they painted tall columns and deep alcoves directly onto the flat plaster. But the most amazing trick involved the light. The painters added fake, dark shadows behind the painted columns. They calculated exactly how the real sunlight would enter the room. The painted shadows perfectly align with the actual beam of light coming through the window. As the sun moves across the floor, the fake columns seem to pop out from the wall. It is a brilliant piece of ancient design. The room feels twice as large as it really is. The artists played with the sunlight to create a quiet, beautiful magic. Many of those painted walls feature a very specific, vibrant color. It is a deep, rich shade known all over the world as Pompeian red. But this famous color is actually a beautiful lie. The original paint in many of these rooms was a bright yellow ochre. The artists never intended for the walls to be red at all. The change happened during the final hours of the town. The extreme heat of the volcanic gases swept through the open windows. This sudden blast of heat chemically baked the yellow pigment. The high temperature transformed the iron in the paint, turning it a deep, permanent red. The famous color is a direct result of the disaster itself. When you look at the walls today, you are seeing the signature of the volcano. The heat left its mark on the very art of the city. The red is beautiful, but accidental. The floors of these grand homes were just as elaborate as the walls. In one massive house, the floor of a reception room holds a true masterpiece. It is known as the Alexander Mosaic. The artwork depicts the famous young king charging into a chaotic battle. The level of detail is absolutely staggering. The entire scene is made of over 1.5 million individual colored tiles. These tiny stone cubes are called tesserae. Some of them are no larger than a single grain of rice. The artists used these tiny pieces to create subtle shading and emotion. You can see the fear in the eyes of the horses. You can see the gleam of light on the bronze armor. It must have taken years of patient, quiet work to set every piece. The floor is a testament to incredible human focus. The tiny stones form a perfect, lasting picture. The owners of these massive homes needed a safe place for their money. Wealthy citizens in the ancient world did not use public banks. Instead, they kept their fortunes right in the main atrium of the house. Archaeologists found a heavy wooden strongbox in one of these grand entryways. The square chest was heavily bound in thick iron bands. It was fastened with large metal rivets and bolted directly to the stone floor. The box was designed to be completely immovable. When researchers finally opened it, they found the family's collection of coins still inside. The strongbox sat in plain sight, right where guests would see it. It was a quiet display of power and security. The heavy iron hinges are rusted now, but they still look incredibly strong. The chest guarded its secrets in the dark for centuries. It is a very heavy piece of history. Sometimes, a strongbox was not enough to protect a family's wealth. At a large farming estate just outside the walls, the owners panicked. As the ash began to fall, they gathered up their most precious belongings. They had a massive collection of exquisite silver tableware. The cups and bowls were highly polished and intricately carved. The owners needed a safe hiding place, so they looked to the farm equipment. They dropped the entire silver hoard down into a deep, empty wine vat. The heavy stone vat protected the delicate metal from the crushing weight of the debris. The silver was found perfectly preserved in the dark. Today, it is known as the Boscorial treasure. The silver gleams beautifully under the soft museum lights. It is easy to imagine the frantic moments when it was hidden. The owners hoped to return for it when the sky finally cleared. Not all the hidden treasures were made of pure silver or gold. In another house, a woman left behind a small wooden jewelry box. When researchers opened it, they found a truly bizarre mix of items. There were priceless, beautifully engraved gems, resting on the velvet. But right next to them were handfuls of cheap, crude glass beads. The collection makes no sense in terms of financial value, but it makes perfect sense in terms of human emotion. The box shows that ancient people valued sentimental trinkets just as much as real wealth. Perhaps a child gave her the cheap glass beads. Perhaps they were a memory of a special day in the market. She kept them safe right alongside her most expensive rings. The mixed collection feels incredibly personal and warm. It is a quiet reminder that the human heart has not changed at all. The people who lived in these homes relied on highly skilled professionals. In a residence known as the House of the Surgeon, excavators made a fascinating discovery. They found a complete kit of ancient medical tools. The instruments were carefully crafted from solid bronze. The collection includes sharp scalpels, delicate forceps, and even slender catheters. What is truly amazing is how familiar they look. The shapes and designs are nearly identical to the instruments used in modern hospitals today. The bronze has turned a soft oxidized green over the centuries. But the precision of the tools is still obvious. You can picture the doctor carefully laying them out on a clean linen cloth. He relied on steady hands and good lighting to do his work. The tools show a deep understanding of the human body. Good design simply lasts, even across thousands of years of medical history. Some of the mysteries left behind are much harder to understand. In the local gymnasium, someone scratched a strange message onto a rough stone column. It is known today as the Sator Square. The carving is a perfect grid of 5 Latin words. The words are Satur, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, and Rotas. It is a brilliant and complex palindrome. You can read the words forwards, backwards, up, and down. The meaning of the phrase remains a complete mystery to historians. Some think it was a secret code, or a magical spell. Others believe it was just a clever word puzzle. The letters are neatly carved into the plaster. You can imagine a student standing by the column, carefully scratching the grid. He was playing with language in the quiet afternoon light. The puzzle has fascinated people for centuries. It is a quiet little riddle hidden in the stone. Near the gymnasium, the gladiator barracks hold their own heavy secrets. In the ruins of the training rooms, researchers found a massive bronze helmet. It has a wide, sweeping brim, and an intricate face visor. The metal is completely covered in raised carvings of mythological figures. The craftsmanship is stunning, but the helmet presents a physical problem. It is incredibly heavy and awkward to wear. Historians believe it was never actually used in real combat. The weight would have made a fighter too slow and tired. Instead, it was likely worn only for ceremonial parades before the games began. You can picture a gladiator walking slowly into the bright sun. The heavy bronze would gleam as he marched around the arena. He wore it just to impress the cheering crowd. Once the parade was over, he traded it for something much lighter and safer. The games in that arena were usually the highlight of the month. But one afternoon, the excitement went terribly wrong. In the year 59, a massive riot broke out in the stone seating of the amphitheater. The local fans started arguing with visitors from a neighboring town. The shouting quickly turned into a deadly brawl. Men threw stones and swung wooden clubs in the dusty air. The violence was so severe that word eventually reached the Emperor Nero in Rome. He was furious about the chaos. As a punishment, Nero banned all gladiator games in the town for 10 full years. The massive stone arena sat completely empty and silent for a decade. Weeds grew between the seats in the quiet sun. The ban was a harsh reminder of imperial power. The empty arena must have felt very strange to the people who loved the games. Long after the empire fell, the empty ruins found a new kind of life. For decades in the 20th century, the site was famous for its stray dogs. A large, protected population of mixed-breed dogs lived happily among the ancient stones. They slept in the warm sun on the steps of ruined temples. They followed the quiet groups of tourists down the paved streets. The dogs became a beloved part of the atmosphere. They brought a gentle, living energy to the silent town. The guards and visitors always made sure they were fed. In the 2010s, the dogs were finally relocated to comfortable shelters. But for a long time, they were the true guardians of the ruins. It is nice to think of them resting in the ancient shadows. They found a peaceful home, in a place where time simply stopped. Our walk through ancient Pompeii is coming to an end. Wherever you've drifted to, you don't need to come back. There's nothing more to listen for tonight. Sleep well.